The market of slaves was the largest in the galaxy. Bright lights flashed across the sky, and alien voices filled the air. Creatures of many kinds were locked in shining cages, waiting to be sold. Some cried for help, others just stared with empty eyes. The rich buyers walked with pride, choosing their new property like toys. A tall warrior beast was sold in seconds. A mind reader was taken by a dark-robed buyer. A young fire breather went to a prince from the Red Moons. Cheers and credits were exchanged, and cages opened one by one. But far in the corner, one cage remained closed. Inside it sat a small, weak creature. Its body was thin like dranches. Its skin was gray and covered in dust. Its eyes were open. But they looked at nothing. The red tag on the cage said, "Worthless unsold." Buyers passed it by without even a glance. One alien laughed. "Is this even alive?" Another said, "Even my dog would be ashamed to eat it." The auctioneer stepped forward and shouted, "Last item." One piece of garbage. No powers, no beauty, no history. Silence followed, then laughter exploded. "No one wants this trash." Someone yelled, "Let the robots throw it in the fire." Suddenly, the crowd became quiet. A new sound echoed through the metal floor boots. A human had entered the auction ground. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and most aliens disliked them. They saw humans as weak, soft, too emotional. But this human walked calmly, dressed in a long brown coat, eyes hidden behind a dusty visor. They stopped in front of the worthless cage. Everyone watched with interest. "Don't tell me the human wants to buy the trash," one alien whispered. The human looked at the creature. The creature didn't move, didn't speak. It just sat there, breathing slowly. The human reached into their pocket and pulled out one single silver coin. It was old, scratched, and not worth much. Still, the human placed it in the auction box. "I'll take it," the human said. Gasps filled the room, followed by loud laughter. "Why?" the auctioneer asked, confused. "It's broken. It's useless. You can't even train it." The human shrugged. "That's fine," they said. "I'll take it anyway." The cage opened with a slow hiss. The creature didn't move. The human took one step closer. "Stand," they said firmly. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the creature lifted its head. Its legs shook, but it stood. The human gave a small nod. "Good," they said. "Now walk." The creature followed the human, one weak step at a time. The crowd watched in silence now. Some whispered, "That human is crazy." Others said, "What are they planning?" The auctioneer looked at the coin, then at the walking slave. He laughed again and shouted, "You just paid for trash, human." "It won't last a day." The humans stopped for a moment, turned their heads slowly, and said in a quiet, serious voice, "You have no idea what you just gave me." Then they walked away. The slave followed, eyes still empty, but somehow something had changed. A spark, a breath, a whisper of forgotten strength. No one noticed it, but the human did, in a galaxy that only saw power, value, and status. The human had picked the one thing no one wanted. But sometimes the most dangerous weapon is the one that no one sees coming. Asterisk. The ship door closed behind them with a cold hiss. The sound of laughter from the market was left behind. Darkness filled the small ship, broken only by the soft blue light of control panels. The human walked ahead without saying a word. The slave followed, slow and silent. It looked at the ship like a creature seeing the sky for the first time. No chains, no guards, no cage, just open space and silence. The human sat in the pilot chair and pressed a few buttons. Engines hummed. The ship lifted into the sky. Stars stretched outside the window like lines of light. They were alone now. Far from the noise of the galaxy, the slave stood quietly in the corner. It didn't sit, didn't speak, didn't even blink. It was like a shadow present, but empty. The human turned and looked at it. "Do you have a name?" They asked. "No." "Answer. Can you speak?" Still silence. The human sighed, stood up, and walked to a small drawer. They pulled out a food pack and threw it gently toward the slave. The pack hit the floor and slid near its feet. The slave looked down but didn't move. The human crouched beside it. "I know you understand me," they said calmly, "even if you pretend not to." The creature's eyes twitched, just for a second. "I didn't buy you to save you," the human said. "I bought you because I need you." Silence again. Only the ship's quiet hum answered back. The human stood, walked to a metal door, and opened it. Inside was a small room, soft lights, clean floor, a bed. It was simple, but better than any. "Cage," the human pointed at the room. "You sleep there." The creature walked slowly to the door. It paused at the edge, then stepped inside. The door stayed open. The human didn't lock it. "Good," the human said. Progress. That night, the human sat alone in the cockpit, staring at a small hologram. It showed an old file, a galaxy-classified document, red warning symbols blinking. "Voidborn do not engage extinct species," the human whispered. "But you're not extinct, are you?" Meanwhile, in the room, the slave sat on the floor, eyes open. Memories danced behind them like smoke. A dark world, screams, flashes of blue light. A voice deep and ancient echoing. "You are the last." It shook its head slowly, like trying to erase the images, but they stayed, hidden in the corners of its broken mind. The next day, the human entered the room. "Training starts now," they said. The slave didn't react. The human dropped a small object on the floor. "Metal cube with blinking lights. Pick it up," they said. "Nothing," I said. "Pick it up." The slave stared at it, then finally moved. Its fingers touched the cube, and suddenly, the cube glowed. The human stepped back in surprise. The cube floated up, spinning, and then shattered into sparks. The creature dropped to the floor. Shaking, the room went dark for 3 seconds. The lights returned, and the slave was breathing fast. The human stared, eyes wide. "I knew it," they whispered. "You're one of them." They walked over, crouched beside the trembling slave. "You're not worthless," the human said softly. "You're not weak. You've just forgotten who you are." The slave looked up. For the first time, something burned in its eyes, a small flame. Hidden under layers of pain, the human stood and smiled for the first time. "Let me help you remember." Space was quiet, too quiet. The stars outside blinked like cold eyes. Watching, waiting. Inside the ship, the creature sat alone in the training room. Its thin hands rested on its knees. Eyes closed, breathing steady, the human stood nearby, arms crossed, watching every move, not with fear, but with focus. Like a scientist waiting for lightning to strike. "I'm going to try something," the human said. They pressed a button on the wall. The floor beneath the creature shifted. Suddenly, metal spikes rose around it, in a circle. Training mode activated. The spikes glowed red, then moved fast. Not enough to hurt, but fast enough to test reflex. The creature didn't flinch. The first spike came in, and it moved too quickly. The motion wasn't trained. It was natural, ancient, a blur of instinct. Buried deep, the second spike darted in, and the creature caught it midair, not with strength, but with something else. A strange pulse passed through its fingers, and the spike froze in place. Glowing lines appeared in the air, symbols that looked like they came from another language. Not alien, not machine, something older. The human took a step forward, heart racing. "You did it again," they whispered. "You touched the void." The creature dropped the spike, eyes still wide. It looked down at its hands like they didn't belong to it. Then it backed away slowly, shaking its head. "No," it said in a broken voice. "I can't." It was the first time it had spoken. The voice was dry, cracked, but clear. The human didn't smile. They just knelt and looked it in the eye. "You're not broken," they said. "You're locked." The creature stared at the floor. Memories began to bleed into its mind again. A war, a city burning, voices crying in a language the galaxy had forgotten. Flashes of dark towers, silver chains, a hand reaching into its chest, and a voice that echoed like thunder. "Seal them all." It fell to the floor, gasping. The human caught it gently. Breathe, they said. It's not your fault. They helped it sit against the wall. You don't know me yet, the human said softly, but I know what you are. You're one of the Nullborn. The creature blinked slowly, that word. It felt familiar and terrifying. What is Nullborn? It asked. The human looked out the window into space. A long time ago, they began. There was a race that didn't use fire, or metal, or machines. They used silence, void energy, the kind that could erase gravity, bend light, silence suns. The creature listened, breathing slower now. They were not evil. The human continued. But they were feared, so the galaxy lied. They said you were dangerous, and wiped you out. The creature closed its eyes. I remember the light, it whispered. They came in ships with golden wings. They sang psalms while they destroyed us. The human's jaw tightened. I've searched for one of you for years, they said. You're the last. Silence filled the room like fog, heavy, real, sacred. Then the ship's alert system beeped. The human stood quickly and ran to the controls. On the screen, 3 red dots appeared, fast-moving ships. They found us, the human said. They tracked your energy spike. The creature stood too, slowly. Its fear was still there, but something else had awakened. A fire behind the eyes, a memory of what it once was. Let me help, it said. The human looked back, surprised. You sure? The creature nodded. It didn't know how to fight yet. It didn't remember its full power, but something inside it had started to rise again. Something the galaxy tried to erase. Not a weapon, not a slave, but a force, the last of the Nullborn, and it had just begun to wake up. Asterisk. The first blast hit the ship like a thunderclap. Metal screamed, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. The creature fell against the wall. The human grabbed the controls. We've got company, the human growled. 3 ships were closing in. Fast, moving like wolves in the dark. Their black wings sliced through space, silent and deadly. Who are they? The creature asked, voice low. Hunters, the human replied. Private killers, paid by those who don't want you alive. The creature's eyes widened. Why? Because you're the last mistake they thought they buried. The ship dove, engines roaring, stars spinning outside the window. Lasers cut through the vacuum, missing them by inches. The human pressed buttons, flipping switches. We can't outrun them forever, they said. Then don't run, the creature whispered. Let me fight. The human paused. You sure? The creature nodded slowly. I don't remember everything, it said, but I know this feeling. The ship shook again, another hit. This one stronger. They had minutes, maybe less. The human led the creature to the back chamber. Inside was a strange circle made of metal and stone. Ancient symbols were carved across the surface, glowing faint blue. What is this? The creature asked. It's from your people, the human said. I found it years ago on a dead moon. I think it's a memory gate. The creature stepped into the circle. The symbols pulsed like a heartbeat. It closed its eyes, suddenly. The room vanished. The creature stood in a vast, silent field of stars. Shadowy figures surrounded it, not human. Not alien, something older. They spoke not in words, but in thoughts. We are the Nullborn. You are the last echo. Wake. The creature gasped and fell to its knees. A white light burst from its chest. In the real world, the humans shielded their eyes. The ship's lights flickered. Systems shut down. Gravity bent for 3 seconds. Then silence. The creature stood, different now. Its eyes glowed faint silver. Its posture had changed, no longer crawling, but standing tall, calm, and aware. They're still outside, the human said. The creature walked to the window. Its hand touched the glass. One of the enemy ships fired again, but the blast never landed. It froze mid-space, like time had paused. Then it shattered into dust. The human's mouth fell open. You stopped a plasma cannon, they whispered. The creature looked at its own hand. I didn't stop it, it said. I told the void to forget it. Outside, The hunter ships paused. Sensors were reading false gravity. Lost power, systems crashing, one captain shouted. This is a nullborn signal abort. Abort, but it was too late. The creature stepped forward again. Its voice was soft but full of force. They want war. Then I will give them memory. The human placed a hand on its shoulder. We're not ready for a full fight, they said. But we can run smarter now. The creature nodded. It no longer felt like a slave or even a survivor. It felt like a key that had been locked away, now turned, and in the galaxy's shadows. That sound was heard. A message was already spreading across space stations and black markets. The Nullborn has awakened, and it's not alone. The ship landed on a forgotten moon. Its surface was cracked, its sky full of falling stars. No city, no signal, no sound, only silence and dust. The human stepped out first, scanning the empty land. The creature followed, no longer crawling. No longer afraid, his eyes were steady, his back straight. He was changing, and he knew it. This place is safe, the human said. For now. They walked to a cave hidden by rocks and shadows. Inside were others, survivors, rebels, outlaws. Some were human, some alien, all watching closely. Whispers began the moment they saw the creature. That's him, the last one, the slave. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. His presence was enough. The human raised a hand. This is not a slave, they said. This is the last of a race they tried to erase. And he's not running anymore, the crowd murmured, unsure. Afraid, a rebel stepped forward, angry. You brought a weapon into our camp, he growled. You think he's going to save us? He doesn't even know who he is. The creature looked at him, and for a second, his eyes flashed silver. The rebel stopped speaking, heart pounding, not from fear, but from something older. Something deeper. I don't remember everything. The creature said, but I remember how it felt. To be hunted, to be chained, to be sold for less than a broken machine. But now, I remember how to fight. A long silence followed then. The human stepped beside him and said, if we fight together, we have a chance. Alone, we die silent. The camp slowly nodded, not with cheers, but with quiet agreement. Training began the next day. The creature stood in the middle of the moon field. He closed his eyes, felt the gravity, the dust, the pull of space. The human threw an energy blade toward him. The blade stopped midair, then fell like it had forgotten its weight. The others watched in awe. He's not bending reality, one said. He's speaking to it. The creature trained without food, without rest, not because he wanted to suffer, but because he was preparing. Not just to fight, but to lead. He helped others too. He healed a rebel's broken mind by touching her temple. He showed a young alien how to see danger before it arrived. He didn't talk much, but every action taught something. Later that night, as they sat by a small fire, the human looked at him and asked, do you still feel like a slave? The creature was quiet for a while, then said, no, I feel like a storm they tried to bury. But storms don't stay buried. Suddenly, an alert blinked red. An incoming message, encrypted, secret, but powerful. The human read it and frowned. The galaxy knows you're alive, and now they've put a bounty on your head. More than any weapon, more than any king, the creature stood, his voice calm. Let them come. I won't run. Not anymore. Far across the stars, warships were already launching. Hired killers were sharpening their weapons. Leaders whispered in fear. They're building something. Something we buried long ago. But none of them knew the truth. That this time, the slave wasn't alone, and this time, he remembered how to fight. Asterisk, the moon was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something, deep underground. The cave stretched far beyond the rebel camp. The human walked beside the creature. Their steps echoed through the forgotten halls. Stone walls lined with symbols flickered in blue light. Each step forward felt heavier, not from fear, but from memory. The creature paused near an old pillar, its fingers traced the carvings. I've been here before. it whispered. The human looked at him, surprised. When? The creature closed his eyes. I don't remember with time, he said, but with feeling. This place was once a temple. They reached a massive stone door. Locked by light, sealed for centuries. The human stepped back. It's all yours, they said. The creature lifted his hand. Symbols on the door began to glow. Not from power, but from recognition, like the temple remembered him, like it had been waiting. The door opened without a sound. Inside was a chamber filled with floating stones. Each one held an image, a piece of history trapped in light. The humans stared, eyes wide. This is a memory vault, they whispered. Real, untold history. The creature stepped in slowly, and the chamber came alive. The walls played a story. Not with sound, but vision. Thousands of nullborn, standing in harmony. Their hands lifted not in war, but in healing, in balance. They sang to the void, not to destroy, but to guide it. To bend space around sick planets, to stop collapsing. Stars, but then came the betrayal. The image changed ships of gold, armies of fire, voices full of lies. They are too powerful. They must be removed. The memory showed a council of galaxy leaders. Afraid, not of violence, but of being replaced. The nullborn were not slaves, not soldiers. They were the truth the galaxy could not control. So they were erased, one by one, their temples burned, their minds sealed, and their name turned into a warning. Nullborn, do not awaken. The creature fell to his knees, hands shaking, eyes wide with grief. They turned us into monsters, he whispered. They called us dangerous. The human knelt beside him. They feared what they couldn't own, they said. And they wrote the history themselves. Suddenly, one of the stones floated to the creature. It pressed itself against his chest. A burst of white light filled the room. Images poured into him, not from outside, but from within. A child torn from his family. A memory wipe that failed. A cage built around his mind, he gasped. I remember. Everything now. The light faded. The chamber went still. The creature stood slowly, not as a slave, not even as a survivor, but as a witness, a living truth. The human placed a hand on his shoulder. What will you do now? The creature looked at the ancient stones. They buried the past to protect their lies, but I will make the truth louder than their silence. Far above the cave, the galaxy continued to lie. News reports showed him as a threat. Governments sent more hunters, and fear was once again being sold in the name of peace. But deep underground, the last of the nullborn had remembered who he was. And this time, he was not coming back to beg. He was coming to be heard. It began with silence. No alarms, no sirens, just a feeling. Something deep inside the stars had changed. At first, only a few noticed. Old satellites blinked without reason. Ancient sensors picked up strange energy, not from a weapon, but from a voice that wasn't speaking. On a quiet moon far from the center systems, the creature stood at the edge of a cliff, looking out at a sky full of stars that once ignored him. The human stood beside him, watching, waiting. You're ready, the human said. The creature nodded. I'm not the last anymore, he said. I'm the first. Behind them, others were gathering, rebels, fugitives, broken people from every corner of space, aliens cast out by governments, humans left behind by war, all drawn to the same silent signal, all feeling the same shift. One by one, the lost answered his call, not because of power, but because they saw themselves in him, forgotten, rejected, underestimated, and now they were done hiding. Ships began to move, not in formation, not in war, but in purpose, a silent fleet rising from ashes, across the galaxy. Leaders panicked. He's creating a following, they warned. He's spreading memory like a virus. We must stop him before he becomes a symbol. But it was already too late. The creature stood before a stolen broadcast tower. The human handed him a small device. This will reach every screen, every signal, every star, they said. The creature stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. he simply spoke. You erased our names. You burned our history. You sold us like tools, and when we broke, you called us worthless. But now I remember. And now they do too. We were never weak. We were made to balance your chaos. And when you feared we were more than weapons, you buried us. His voice echoed across planets and systems. People stopped to listen, miners. In deep tunnels paused, pilots turned off music. Children stared at screens with wide eyes. We are the forgotten, he said, but we are not lost. We are the broken, but we are not destroyed. You called us worthless. But now we rise. In that moment, something shifted in the galaxy, not in politics, not in weapons, but in belief. For the first time in 1,000 years, the forgotten were seen, not as tools, not as threats, but as people. The humans smiled. You did it, they whispered. The creature looked at them. No, he said, we did. The fleet moved again. Not to attack, but to rebuild, not to conquer, but to remind the stars what they tried to forget. Some governments tried to fight. They launched ships, created fear, spread lies. But fear only works when people feel alone. And now they weren't. Across planets, slaves escaped. Citizens protested, and young ones whispered the name Nullborn, like a legend returned. In hidden halls and quiet temples, the old memory woke again. Not to bring war, but to bring balance. And at the center of it all, the creature once called worthless, now stood tall, not as a king, not as a god, but as a reminder that even the smallest spark can burn down the longest lie.